6 years into this conflict, no international community has come, no country is coming, and even the African Union seemingly have forgotten about what is happening. How do we try to fix what concessions to make with regards to our hope and desire to see the international community come here?
Yeah, we cannot say that the international community has not been there.
Okay.
Cameroon does not work in isolation.
Okay.
And one of the things I've said is that they have been here, and the promises have always been that we can solve it.
Okay.
You equally look at the African Union chair was in Cameroon, Faki. Equally, there was Patricia Scotland of the Commonwealth of Nations. We have had the representative of La Francophonie in Cameroon. Sometime, Guterres and his team were equally in Cameroon. A lot of that. Those visitations were not courtoisie, though the results came to be courtoisies in nature, which means that they came because there was a problem in Cameroon, and Cameroon was asking Cameroon if there was need for assistance. That since we are those armchair rulers, leaders who think that they master everything and they can do it, we're not forgotten equally the Ghanaian-led mediation of Kofi Annan, even though he died later. Equally, we should not forget of the Swiss negotiation. A lot of that. We cannot say we were in isolation. The United Nations under the
when I talk about international community, I know that Guterres and all of these persons, La Francophonie was here. I'm talking about intervention from the international. Yes, direct intervention.
That is what I'm saying. That Cameroon is a member of an international community, and these people, in one way or the other, are here. We cannot say they have not been, but what they receive from the person that is supposed to give them the confidence, maybe to act directly. Because there are a lot of remember, Médecins Sans Frontières or Doctors Without Borders. They were all over. United Nations agencies were equally roaming. If you know, a lot of those agencies exist in the Northwest and the Southwest. Well, to what extent can they act directly? It depends on the state of affairs internally, which means the government has still been presenting that a military solution remains the sole solution, that the military option remains the sole solution, and that military will put order. And one of the things we're thinking, again, comes from members of government. We just said here that a lot of lies telling. Those who visit the two regions, go back to Yaoundé and said things are gradually returning into normalcy. So which means the government in Yaoundé is also comfortable, and they have listed one of the things that are getting into normalcy is to prove that Nkambe is quiet, and that Oku was quiet, and that Fako is quiet, and that Kumba gradually too is getting quiet. People are not telling you that the Prime Minister will find difficulties going to Ekondo Titi. People will not tell you that in Akwaya we cannot access. People are able to tell you where the problems are, that in Goretungia, it's like that is ruled by one other person, we don't know his name, that we can not get there. They have the way they present their report. And for all this period, the international community, remember, even those who said they were fighting for the people, start killing civilians with the intention of bringing in what we call the international community. And people think that killing or two women or children will bring the United Nations. These are all periods of lies telling. And I said a state that is living of going to base his actions on lies will hardly succeed, because it is said that only the truth can or shall set us free. This would mean that the Cameroon government, for all this while, equally told Cameroonians and the international community that we will manage it. It is our problem, and that we handle the solution in Cameroon. A lot have been assassinated. A lot have been consumed through torture. A lot of homes destroyed. Some, equally, we call them collateral damage, that they are just consequential damages resulting from the main action, and nothing is said about. We have seen reports equally coming from those equally calling for the separatists to stop attacking civilians. We have seen the international human rights organizations, Amnesty International, condemning such act. We have seen a lot of reports for those who refuse that we did not, and later they accept that we are sorry, we did it. And the same people litter the streets. To what extent the international community will entertain such havoc still remains within the auspices or within the arms of the Cameroon government, which until he will tell the international community like they think. But then you will equally remember that the international community never waited for Libyans to tell them that Gaddafi was a bad leader. And so we should equally think that concessions are made when such thoughts are getting into consideration, that the international community will act for you will depend on how far your strength of lobbying that same international community to come to your assistance. A lot of those nations that were supposed to be maybe supporting one way or the other still feel that the economic interest is still intact and there is no need. France will tell you that we'll continue selling the arms, and those arms, if we are conscious, are to be used against Cameroonians, whether against the military or any civilian. They are all Cameroonians. The Cameroonians need to think that somewhere in 1961, it was not by arms. When the referendum was made in 1972, it was not arms. In 1984, when we changed the name of the nation, it was not by arms. So what makes us think that arms can settle a Cameroonian problem? The Cameroon people are capable. I mean, they are capable of doing, and they can do it 100%. If those who are in power accept and give that chance for us to handle it. This is the time for the government to even see that we can do it and do it well. Why still stand on and sucking Cameroonians dry? Those in the diaspora are able to come to Cameroon. And so I think I believe sometimes we're talking of the role of the diaspora in overcoming these hurdles. No nation has grown without the diaspora. And so we need one another. Even when they have caused havoc, we too might have caused more internally.
Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to all the panelists, especially Mr. Jarvis, who have amused me today with his analysis unlike before. Mr. Liu, I really love the way you handle your programs, especially with topics like this. You will bear in mind with me, Mr. Liu, that we have lost already a majority of the productive age in our two English-speaking regions. And of course, I think it's high time that this killing should end, being Amber Boys or military. They are all Cameroonians. And we are tired of hearing of bloodshed every blessed day. May God in his compassion and love be merciful on our country, Cameroon, and save us from all these damnations. Let peace and love lead in our fatherland as we stand as one person to say no to violence. Thank you. Chika Divine is writing from Yaoundé. Many persons are surprised by your position. I don't know what position you took. Good evening. Yes, Jarvis has a point. We should all look towards interest, but could that be why they have positions? The positions they see is the best way position to guarantee their interests. Baldwin is writing from Boya. Good evening to you, Baldwin. Good evening, sir. I love your program. Keep it up. One day your program will bear fruits. Abong Ezekiel writing from the Kingdom of Bahrain. Good evening to you, my brother. Good evening, Mr. Liu. About the international community, they only come in when the height of human rights violation has been met. As of now, their minds are still settled on the integrity of the state of Cameroon, so they can't come in directly. But trust that records are taken and there will be no notice before they intervene. Mopao is writing from Sweden. La loi devient une corruption mondiale soutenue. La loi devient un monde et les gens qui souhaitent faire que leur visage voit le jour, ils me disent si ils ont exemple. I don't know whether you are writing about this program et que vous voulez, je viens à vous ou vous venez à moi. Je suis sérieux. Okay, I'm not sure you're talking about this topic here. You're talking about some things of the light. I don't know what you're talking about, please. Good evening, Mr. Kum. If the Anglophone problem cannot be discussed in Cameroon House of Representatives, how can we be blaming the international community in some? Clement, some watching from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I love your program. I keep watching your program every day. Now, my worry is what Moja is doing to the Anglophones in Boya. They're beating them every day and no one is saying anything. Please, I would like you to table it on one of your programs. Writing from Limbe. My regards to my friend Mr. Njumen. I'm Sony Rapido. I'm sure we discussed about that already. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I really am enjoying the program, and I really do appreciate the work you and the My Media Prime team have been doing. Only God can reward your good work. God bless you, and I'm enjoying the program. It's chosen. Writing from Yaoundé, Mr. Liu. No international community can't come to send children to school. Open stores on Monday. Stop kidnapping. Clear our refuse. Christopher is writing from Bamenda. Good evening once more, Mr. Liu. I'm thinking Agbogbala, initiator of school boycott ghost towns, supported by TASA, should call off school boycott and ghost towns as a human rights defender. Okay. I like the question you asked Dr. Ako, whether the government should have sat quiet when people take up arms. He didn't answer. I see that it is easier to criticize the government than to talk about separatist policies of school boycotts, ghost towns, shutdowns, kidnaps, threats, insults. Okay. So many messages, but I want to read just a few of them, and then we conclude for today. Paul Ngong, writing from Akale Street in Kumba. Greetings, Mr. Liu. I'm grateful for your efforts towards nation building. This crisis can only come to an end if the Anglophones elites in government start being sincere to themselves by telling the government the truth that the national cake is not fairly distributed. Okay, good evening to you, Paul Ngong. Now, concessions at the National Assembly session just ended. But do we think that it is imperative? Almost everybody think that to show that grounds have been shifted, they need to talk about this.
Mr. Liu, you all of us know the story of Weber, Honorable Weber. He raised the concerns about the crisis in Parliament. And the President of the National Assembly and members of Parliament are currently aware of the situation. And you'll be so amazed, Mr. Liu, when I have the opportunity to speak to some members of Parliament that they don't influence the agenda of Parliament. The agenda is just brought to them. I remember when Honorable Weber was arrested, one member of Parliament told me...
Was he arrested?
I mean, when he ran, rather, sorry, I'm sorry for that. When he ran because of fear of being arrested, some of the members of Parliament said, we don't even have the courage. I'm talking about parliamentarians from the Northwest and Southwest. We don't even have the courage to talk on the issue, only talk about it in the corridors. Which simply means that since the CPDM has the majority in Parliament, they determine what the agenda is. And I want to say to the parliamentarians, even if the matter is discussed in Parliament, of course, you'll be given a thought. If it is discussed in Parliament and government is not still willing to get the matter resolved, will not get to any headway. And one of the things which I want us all to understand is that we don't need this is me talking. We don't need the international community to resolve this crisis as long as the government is willing to get it resolved. How can government get it done? We have all the mechanisms to get it done amicably within Cameroon by simply calling on all Cameroonians, okay, we have a problem in the house. What is the way forward? Allow Cameroonians to talk. We don't need the international community to tell you, okay, you must call for dialogue now, so that you can enable Cameroonians to be able to air out their views. Cameroon can be able to solve this crisis, and I think that government should be willing to take measures to get it done, because the life of Cameroonians is more precious than any other. We can't be able to say, stand on our positions, say, no, we can't, and we can't shift our positions and think that, okay, if I leave the elitist class, I will not be able to survive. You see, for us to be able to have credibility, Mr. Liu, in human governance, is the fact that you keep your personal ambitions aside and be able to lift up the welfare of the people that you are called to serve. Because it's not about you, it's about them. And since it's about them, you can be able to forego your benefit and take the responsibility to lift up the people whom you have the mandate to get that done. And so, if Parliament has not been able to discuss it, what are they representing as far as Parliament is concerned, especially those of the English extraction? I even felt that by now, parliamentarian, though when you are in parliament, you are a parliamentarian for the nation, not for a particular community. But parliamentarians of the English extraction of Cameroon would have been able to say, okay, this is like have a caucus meeting to say, okay, our people are suffering. How can we be able to take their grievances to the bigger house so that they can be able to get that done? And I think that this time that we all have is so precious to us, and we don't have it on our side. As the days are going, a life is being lost. Like we talked about a while ago about, one of the those who wrote an SMS asking a question. We are not castigating and criticizing the separatists. Of course, the separatist actions are being criticized, but that is just a consequence. We shouldn't be dealing with symptoms and forget the root causes. So if we must be able to solve the problem, let's be able to examine the roots and stop chasing the shadows of the consequences of the symptoms which we find ourselves in the killing of one another, and be able to get the situation addressed so that we can be able to have peace in this God so blessed country. We have one destiny. We have one future as a united but not uniform people, and we have to take responsibility to get that done sooner, not later.
Okay. Now, concessions on the part as squarely put on this part of the separatist school boycott has been there forever. Ghost Town has been there forever, and a host of others. Is this also time for them to shift some positions, at least to let the people breathe a bit?
It is always necessary when you are in conflict to a bit shift position. Because the moment you stay put on a particular position, there are 5 things that happens to you. 1, you immediately start losing allies. 2, some people who were looking at the position at that time, at the end of the day, they later on would not have interest in sponsoring. 3, people become fatigued in giving resources. 4, you lost confidence on the side of your so-called third party who may want to come and resolve the problem. 5, you end up not knowing what to do at the end of the day because you think that it must be done the same way. Now, the separatists, to be honest and fair with you, they have a right to a bit shift ground to even a cosmetic ground, as they are accusing the government to have been cosmetically. Now, why do you shift ground? You shift ground somehow because you want this person who is on the other side, that you want him to take sympathy with you, to understand that you are reasonable enough to not to be in one position, that it is not the government on this side that don't want to make meaningful steps. But when you rely yourself on one position, there is a problem in conflict. Now, another issue that we must understand is that there are 3 main sides in this conflict. There is the separatists, there is the government, and there is the people. The people are those who are affected directly or indirectly by the action of either the government or the action of the separatists. That is, the people are the mothers whose children are being killed, either the military children, those who are military sons and daughters and military men who have been killed, like that of Ayefo and co, and also those who have amber boys who have been killed, and those who have civilians who have been killed. The mothers are the third side of this conflict, and the third side of this conflict is headed by the church. The church has a key role to ensure that they pull the third side of the conflict and bring to sides who are not able to shift their position on the table, as we saw in South Africa. Desmond Tutu brought both sides, struggled to bring both sides on the table. And this is why we should see that the conflict, on this other hand, can be mitigated. People can shift from position a bit when the church in itself will see that we must come together to bring in the common man. I always say this, that the panacea of this conflict is the day that the bishops, the bishops, the pastors, our mothers in the northwest and southwest will decide and tell the people that enough is enough. Kill all of us, and then let's see how the conflict will not be resolved. That day, the conflict will be resolved, because these are the vulnerable set of people. Remember that if a young man is killed, it doesn't make news internationally. But if a woman is killed, there's news. If a man of God is touched, there is news. That's why you heard, kill Dongmu, but don't kill my bishop. kill Nongmu, don't kill my bishop, because they see that there is that need. Above all, for us to understand this very well, I know this may be the last time I'm talking, my dear brothers and sisters, we must understand that we share one common value, the humanity in us. And that humanity in us is that peace. And peace is worked for. Peace is nurtured. Just as tree takes in carbon dioxide and gives us oxygen, we must nurture that peace. And that peace is when our love for humanity outgrows our insatiable appetite for human vanity. Naked we came, naked we shall go back. All of us shall die. One day, nothing will change Mount Cameroon from being Mount Cameroon. Nothing will change Menchun 4 for being Menchun 4. Nothing will change the Limbe Sea for being the Limbe Sea. In 1,000 years, those places will be there. The human resources are more important, which is you and me.
Okay, we want to say thank you to you, Doctor, for coming. Doc.Ako?
Yeah, the pleasure is mine always. I believe it is never too late. It is never too late to make good decisions, and the government of Cameroon, the separatists too, has an obligation to do. If Cameroon need to be better, then the obligations become one of all Cameroonians. Is it for us all to continue living in the present situation? Nobody will obviously accept such, and then we should equally accept that we committed fouls and that we can make it good. There is need for forgiveness, there is need for peace, there is need for us to construct a more stronger federal Cameroon.
Okay, we also want to thank you, Mr. Raymond, for coming.
Thank you, Ms. Leonard, for the opportunity. I just want Cameroonians to know that your dislike for government should not be transferred to the nation. Even if the government is at fault at whatever level, we have a responsibility to collaborate and see how we can together avoid the blame-shifting game by us taking responsibility to love one another, by us taking responsibility to be tolerant, and for us to know that a nation is being built, and that particular nation, for it to be built, requires different blocks, that is human lives and human beings like you and myself. We should also know that in as much as the foundation of our nation may have issues, you don't destroy a house if the foundation is faulty. You reinforce the foundation. Therefore, we have a duty, as all of us are Cameroonians, to take responsibility to endeavor that we build a better nation. Because one thing is obvious: none of us wrote an application to be born in Cameroon.
Of course,
God made that choice for you to be born in Cameroon. So the question is, if God is the manufacturer and sent you on the earth in the marketplace, you being his or our product, I mean, you being his product, the question is your manifestation in the market bringing down the reputation of the manufacturer, or it is improving upon it? We have a duty as those who, by God's design, were born Cameroonians, to take responsibility to be nation builders, so that together we can be proud that God did not send us in Cameroon in vain. God bless you, and God bless Cameroon.
We also want to say thank you to you, Jarvis, for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aliu, and a special good evening to the peace-loving people of Way Village, above all the people of Moya.
We want to say thank you to you all who took time off to watch this edition of Prime on My Media Prime. Thank you to you, Eli and Desmond, for producing. Tambe Bryant for supervising. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.